President Trump's immigration crackdown is not just taking a turn, it is driving the criminal cartels into an absolute kinetic fury. Foot traffic is spiking along our southern border. The Texas Department of Public Safety is now deployed on the hunt for human smugglers and the illegal immigrants they traffic. The gangs and cartels operating on the U.S. border have not just decided to cross, they have decided to storm the gates. And for the first time this year, border incursions are violently trending in the wrong direction. But the United States is not sitting idle. The most powerful military in history is now prepared to take decisive action, lethal action, directly in Mexico, where this cartel invasion force has been hiding all along. This is the definitive briefing. This is the evidence that the war is escalating. Within hours of being deployed, the Texas team got word. 2 men had breached the wall. They raced to intercept. 1 man slipped back into Mexico. He was immediately identified as a guide. The other, a Mexican national, was captured. This is the micro-war at the border. But the macro-war is far bigger. The Trump administration has directed the U.S. military to prepare for lethal strikes against these cartels. This military action could come without the explicit toothless approval of the Mexican government. The president of Mexico, she is furious. She is calling Mexican Senator Lily Tellez a traitor. But the help from the United States, the support to fight these cartels in Mexico, is absolutely, overwhelmingly welcome. And that is how the majority of Mexican citizens feel. The only ones who don't like President Trump sending help, the only ones resisting this necessary support against the cartels, are the corrupt politicians. And that absolutely includes President Sheinbaum. Stop resisting. What started as a quiet morning at a mundane car wash quickly escalated. Unmarked vehicles pulled in. Immigration agents swarmed the property. Everyone started screaming. Cars were left sitting there, covered in wash towels. A citizen prays for a resolution. I pray under God's guidance that we get freedom for our country, for Mexico, to stop it from being the next Venezuela. The brutal truth must be stated. Deportation alone is not enough of a punishment for the criminals America's been booting back across its border. They treat it as a temporary inconvenience. But what nobody is talking about is the absolute reason we have so many repeat crossings. Because the cartels and the criminal gangs behind all these incursions, they are right on the other side of the border. They are operational, and absolutely nothing is being done to stop them from the Mexican side. From the absolute safety of Mexico, these criminals plot their mischief every single day against America. They fly their high-tech drones. They make their strategic plans. They keep a constant, unchallenged eye on Border Patrol, looking for the exact, perfect moment to try and sneak their human cargo across. This might soon change. America is undeniably putting the lethal pieces in place to take some sort of decisive, unprecedented action against these cartels in the very near future. But the problem is, Mexico's current government, they absolutely do not want this. Well, not all of Mexico. Because while their president seems to be firmly in the tank for absolute Mexican autonomy over its borders and any criminal activity therein, there are many law-abiding Mexican citizens and fiercely courageous politicians who want to see the status quo of alleged cartel cooperation gone, extinguished. And that brings us to the real, undeniable reason we could soon see something drastic take place in Mexico for the first time in a century. Many law-abiding Mexican citizens would be in favor of it. They are sick, they are tired. They are living under the iron fist of a criminal empire, an empire that the government simply cannot seem to get rid of, for reasons we must now expose. A criminal empire that has allegedly infested the police, the military, and even the highest levels of the government to such a devastating degree that they are able to pretty much do whatever they want. And while these cartels are destroying Mexican society, they are making things infinitely worse in America at the exact same time. Watch out. Okay, stop. That guy, an MS-13 gang member, was able to evade police. He ran away. He disappeared into the brush. However, within just a few hours. He was reconnected by his cartel handlers to a new group of smugglers through an application like Facebook. They picked this guy up, and they got caught with him the very next day. What this reveals is a sophisticated, high level of coordination behind the scenes. This is not disorganized crime. This is a well-oiled, multi-billion-dollar crime machine. Exactly, right there. We were the only news crew embedded alongside Texas DPS's elite brush team, alongside their specialized ATV units this morning. They were out looking for people who did not want to be found. Here's the operational picture we found. Within hours of being deployed, the team got word that 2 men had breached the wall. They raced to intercept. One man slipped back into Mexico of the guide. The other, a Mexican national, was forced to evade capture by hiding in the brush. Not long after, they came across a group of 4. 2 women from Colombia, another woman from Guatemala, and a 20-year-old from Mexico. This is not a local problem. It is a hemispheric invasion. It might be harder than ever to cross the U.S. border with all the new restrictions, all the new troops deployed, and the fact that we finally have a president who cares more about border security than the last one ever did. But what we're dealing with here is not merely an impoverished populace trying to come here for a better life. Behind the scenes of these crossings is a cartel empire. You've got criminal experts who've been making absolute fortunes off our border for a long time. They are charging people massive, crippling fees, which many people looking for a better life are then forced to illegally work off at criminal businesses in America. They are not finding anything close to the American dream. They are finding indentured servitude. And once they get across, they are picked up by unwitting Americans, or sometimes very willing Americans, who know that the thousands of dollars they are getting paid to pick up people hiding in bushes might not be coming from a legitimate source. But they do it anyways. They become accessories to the cartel crime machine. A high-ranking Mexican senator, Senator Lily Tellez, says this cartel machine is virtually everywhere in Mexico. Yes, it is, she states unequivocally, and we all Mexicans know about it. When asked the fundamental question, "Are you afraid for your life?" her answer is chilling. Yes, I am afraid, and the president has threatened me to proceed against me with criminal prosecution, to get me out of the Senate and get me in jail. Just because I told you in this space, in Fox News. What is the reality of our country with the cartels? The cartels are dominating everything here in Mexico. They are in all the offices of the government, in the states, in the cities, and in the national government. The idea that Mexico's government has been putting forth, the lie that the cartels are totally under control, that they are not a big deal, or that if they cannot stamp them out, they are somehow only America's problem. That toxic idea has just been blown to smithereens by this interview. This senator is risking her life, exposing her own government's alleged corruption. And it sounds like they've been telling her that she might end up in jail just for saying what many Mexican law-abiding citizens have been saying for years, that their country has essentially been taken over. You've got this crony criminal empire made up of legitimate-looking politicians who are secretly doing the will of this criminal empire, giving them a safe place to operate and to make billions of dollars in ways that certainly do not make Mexico or America any better. But how do they go about doing this? The Mexican government and the cartels, they have infested the nation. Senator Tellez explains this alleged alliance between the president, her party, the Morena party, and the cartels. Yes, the party has financed, has given. The cartels have given so much money to these politicians to get into office, to get the power. So they protect the Mexican government, protects the cartels. That is why President Sheinbaum doesn't want the strong American leadership to help Mexico defeat the cartels. And also, Sheinbaum doesn't want the rest of the world to know what is happening here in Mexico. We are on the steps to be the next Venezuela. What's absolutely fascinating is that people in Mexico understand that their government is not going to stop the criminals running their country anytime soon unless they are forced to do it, or unless somebody else does it for them. The Mexican government doesn't want to let the cat out of the bag, and we are seeing them try to keep the cat in the bag Recently, the Mexican president, who must be under extreme pressure, has taken actions that critics say never would have happened in the past. Not only sending troops to some areas of the country, but engaging in certain crackdowns on some organized crime. However, to the informed eye, this looks suspicious. If you've got a government that is allegedly in league with a criminal empire and they crack down on some of the criminals, how do we know this isn't government-sponsored elimination of competition for one criminal group over another? And every single week, it seems like there is another high-profile accusation that Mexico's president knows more about the cartels than she is letting on. This could be a coincidence. But when you have enough coincidences, things start to look very, very suspicious. And now we've got this whistleblower account. It came out just weeks after there was a massive internal fight within their government over how to handle these cartels. Cartels that apparently haven't been handled, or we wouldn't be having any of these discussions now. The report from Ken Klippenstein reveals the Trump administration has directed the military to prepare for lethal strikes against cartels. The attacks will reportedly be ready by mid-September. One of the military sources quoted says the military action could come without the approval of the Mexican government. The question raised by some is targeting one high-value target, or even 10, or many high-value targets, is that worth the loss of Mexican cooperation? The truth is stark. We cannot necessarily say we have any meaningful Mexican cooperation at this point. The cartels are still out there. They've been saying they're going to get rid of them for decades, and they are still out there exploiting our border to a greater degree than they used to be. Everyone knows where they are. It's not like a training camp or a base is hard to spot. These criminals have established safe places to hang out, places where their own military won't even go. So, the cooperation we are allegedly going to lose is non-existent. And this explains the operational success. This explains why these cartels always seem to be one step ahead of their local military and police. How can they arrest all of the supposed top leaders and send them to America? And at the exact same time, these cartels are alive and well, doing their thing, crossing the border to a greater degree than they used to be. This is only possible if the people we are getting sent are not the ones truly in charge of running things. And the real leaders are still out there, safe, laughing. A report from the New York Times reveals the CIA has increased reconnaissance operations over Mexico. We know where they are. Any country would find it inappropriate if foreign soldiers without permission were being actively deployed on their territory. However, any country that finds it inappropriate to eliminate criminals who harm Americans and citizens of their own country, they might be the ones acting inappropriately here. Again, this is all alleged. These are accusations that the Mexican president knows more than she is letting on, accusations that are not just coming from one senator, as we saw with the Mexican government rushing to defend banks that were identified by our Treasury Department as funding criminals. But the part of this story that we've never been told before is that you have elements in Mexican leadership that are in fear for their own safety. They are not compromised, and they are speaking out. And they are finally bold enough to speak out because there is American leadership just on the other side of the border wall that wants the exact same thing they do. All 3 women arrested wore cartel wristbands. That is definitive proof that they paid for their journey. They tell us it cost about $5,000 each, paid directly to the cartel. A steep, life-altering price for migrants from Colombia and Guatemala, who usually pay closer to $2,000 or $3,000. The price of human flesh is rising. Look at this. Here are the statistics that we just got from our DHS sources. Exclusively, the Rio Grande Valley sector is now the busiest along the border. The data shows more crossings here this month than anywhere else. We know that even just one gotaway is a potential public safety risk. We are seeing potential public safety risks sneaking into America. People who aren't just from gangs that might be associated with other South American dangerous organizations, but even people from the Middle East for some reason. And the far corners of the earth are being brought across our border by gangs who give people printed wristbands. This is not some fly-by-night operation. It is a legitimate existential threat because it's such a well-organized business that we are dealing with here with these Mexican cartels. How do they have the infrastructure to set this up? How do they have the time and the space and the absolute safety to fly their high-tech drones over our border whenever they want, looking for possible moments where they can exploit the security that we've got down here? You can only do that if you are not afraid of somebody busting down your front door, coming in and arresting you while you've got the drone goggles on. And you're controlling this thing, focused on it. You cannot do that if you are running for your life from law enforcement like these guys should be. But another part of this that you have to understand is that the Mexican cartel helps the Mexican government in ways that nobody is talking about. First of all, Mexico spends around 12% of their GDP on social welfare programs. That won't touch what California spends on social welfare, and Mexico in turn receives about 15% of their GDP from tourism. So their social welfare is functionally covered by their tourism industry. And if Mexico had to care for the estimated 20 million illegal immigrants who passed through their country and entered our country over the last 4 years, they would be instantly bankrupt. And the cartels bringing people out of Mexico, funneling them into sanctuary cities and states throughout America, that does a lot to help the Mexican government stay afloat and operate as it has been. This is the reality of the open border. It is a high-speed, no-holds-barred war taking place on your streets, on your highways. The numbers are staggering. The criminal enterprise is powerful. It is well-funded, and it is utterly reckless. But the law enforcement response is uncompromising. They are a wall of steel, relentless and focused. They know the price of failure. We must understand that this fight is not a distant political argument. It is a fundamental question of public safety. When thousands of unlicensed, uninsured, and potentially criminal drivers are flooding the roads, every American driver is put at extreme risk. This is a mandatory defense of our roads, our laws, and our national integrity. We have shown you the battlefield. We have shown you the enemy's face. Now, you must acknowledge the threat. You must support the uncompromising defense of our borders and our laws. Do you think that the Mexican people would be in favor of U.S. action against criminal empires